a man, Chuck, who was under pressure for a decade, actually. Rory McIlroy finally, to borrow a term from wrestling, right, with Cody Rhodes, finished the story by winning the Masters and completing the Grand Slam, becoming the sixth player in history to do so. He'd been chasing the Masters to complete the Grand Slam for 10 years, and he finally did it on that Sunday at Augusta. And I want to ask this question in terms of finishing the story, right? As an observer of sport, which has been the most compelling finish the story that you have had the chance to witness?
I've been racking my brain. And it's just not coming. It's just not coming. Like I think of like a Glover Teixeira, UFC fighter, light heavyweight. He actually finally won his light heavyweight title at the age of 39, if not 40. Obviously, the oldest champion that the UFC has ever had. He's been in the game for a long, long time. Even when John Jones was coming up, he was already there. I think his only title fight was against John Jones, which he lost. And ever since then, he's been grinding in and out of the rankings in terms of top five, coming close and then losing, coming close and then losing. And then finally, at the age of 40, he captured that. And I thought to myself, that is finishing the story, right? But I think as someone who watches football and having seen, for many people, the debate of the GOATs being put to rest was Messi finally winning the World Cup. Because that's a man who, after, I think, 2018, where he lost the World Cup, he was like, I'm done. Angisafuni anything to do with Argentina, the Higuains and the Mahrez could not say anything to him, right? But somehow he had a change of heart, turned around and donned the Albi Celeste jersey again. And he leads, and he was a sterling player. I think minus Mbappe, he probably was one of the best players at that World Cup. So in 2022, Messi gets his hand on a World Cup trophy. And I think for me, that finishes the story because of all the comparisons, right? Because there was Ortega, there was Riquelme, everyone was the next Maradona, right? And Messi seemed to be that guy yet again. And those shoes seemed big because everyone was like, yeah, he does well with Barcelona, but can he do it with Argentina? And for the longest time, he could not convert with Argentina, whether it be Copa, whether it be World Cup. And so when he finally does get to that particular place where he's clearly their leader, clearly their talisman, where everyone does the thing for Messi and Messi gets the crown, I think Messi is the guy who finally finished the story, Jay.
I thought about Messi, right? And I thought, did he wait all that long to win a World Cup? Because when we look at his World Cup career, 2006, I forgot who the coach is. He benched him. We watched Argentina get knocked out of the World Cup and didn't even bother to sub him on. And I think things would have been different if that happened. Then 2010 was just a disaster under Maradona. 2014 is where the heartbreak really happens. It's at his peak, and then it's the World Cup final. Personally, I feel that's on Messi because I feel all things being equal, the greatest player of all time, if he shows up as himself in that World Cup final, they win the World Cup final.
And what do you mean that's on Messi, Jay? Because like we said, big moments come and not everyone converts.
So that's why I say all things being equal. It's not a situation. My view of that final was not a situation that man, the other team was just that much stronger. It's that's just too much to expect of him. All things being equal, if there's gonna be a difference maker, I expected it to not be Mario Götze or the German team. I expected it to be Lionel Messi. Higuain has got blood on his hands in that final. But I think for me, 2014 is the worst I've seen Messi in his peak. And I think if he was playing up to his greatest of all time level, they win the World Cup. And then finally, of course, does it in Qatar. So for me, on a personal note, it's Roger Federer winning the French Open in 2009. Especially going back to 2008 and the previous years where he was trying to win that Grand Slam title to also complete the Grand Slam in tennis, because Rafael Nadal had just beat up on him badly, particularly in 2008, going prior to that Wimbledon final, because in that French Open final it was a demolition job. And I'd never seen a Roger Federer, who is one of the athletes I absolutely love the most in my time of watching sports, be pummeled in the way that he was. And yes, there was the fact that Soderling did him a favor by knocking out Nadal in that French Open. but there was so much pressure on him at that point. Well, the expectation is that Nadal's not there from the fourth round. Now you go on and you win it. And I think about like what he would have internalized at that point, and then getting to the final against the guy who beat Rafael Nadal. Is he maybe good enough to do the same thing against me and coming through and winning that Roland Garros title? But taking myself out of the equation in terms of my support of that particular individual or team, it's Liverpool winning the Premier League. I generally feel Liverpool are a special team, and I felt that for the longest time watching them.
But can you please explain why? Because you keep talking about European nights and
you're about to explain it. Go ahead.
No, European nights in Anfield and how Liverpool in the league. I've just never understood this idea that Liverpool is special versus like all the other teams in the league. I've never quite captured that. Maybe it's because they're my rivals, but please explain to me why you hold this opinion.
Because of, I honestly, so when I say I feel, I really mean I feel. Like it's a feeling. When I watch Liverpool, when I hear "You'll Never Walk Alone" before the start of the match, I get goosebumps. When I hear even through the TV the atmosphere that comes through from Anfield, when I've seen a Steven Gerrard score the goal against Olympiacos, when I've seen them Origi doing what he did, it only felt like the world was shaking when that stadium goes into massive eruptions. And I've also had the opportunity to meet Liverpool fans initially as a young kid. When I was like really young, like what I knew of the Premier League was Arsenal because I supported them along with my dad, and Manchester United. Manchester United being the superpower of the Premier League. And my experience being someone who grew up in the township as well was was confined to just that being my ideas of the Premier League. And I mentioned that because I hadn't really interacted with a whole lot of white people at that point. I remember I went to a summer camp and I met quite a few like white kids, and asked the question, who do you support? And a majority said Liverpool, and I could not for the life of me understand, because I knew Liverpool, but like, why do people support Liverpool? As I'm saying, I understand Arsenal, I understand Manchester United. And as I grew up, I then found out about the history of Liverpool and their success in the 80s and realized, okay, those kids came from parents who like were there like supporting the Manchester United or Man City of the time in the 80s, being Liverpool. And that then weight from that moment, and then even in my adult life coming across Liverpool fans, my opinion, again, as a collective, Liverpool fans are the most no ball fan base that I've come across. Like the ones I've come across, they're really no ball, and I have a great respect like for them as a result. And hearing those stories and also seeing like through watching the Premier League coming close in 2009, coming close again in 2014, and the Gerrard slip and everything around Stevie G, and not being able to quite get there, and understanding how historic of a club they are in terms of what they've achieved, but also, as I'm saying, coming back to their connection with their fan base, to then see them win that league title. And though it was not advisable during COVID to see the scenes, like that infamous picture where they are around like Anfield and finally breaking the 30-year drought, that was absolutely special in terms of finishing the story.